How are we doing today? We're going to go over routers. There's the router shaper table, which is basically a router mounted up under a table using pretty much the same bits, and you're using a fence. This one is freehanding, and we have 3 of them here. And the nice thing about the freehanding with a router is you can do curves, and we'll be showing you that later on. What I want to show you here is the collet in here. We have a 3/8 one, and then over on this one right here is another 3/8 one, and over here is a 1/2 inch one. Now these can come off and you can change them. So I could take this off and put on a 3/8 one. The difference of it is the type of bits, and we're going to go over that, the different size bits. I prefer the 1/2 inch, gives you a little more grab to it. So what we're going to go over on how to use these, there's a couple different ones. This is just a regular router, all right? And a lot of times what you're doing with this is you're following with dovetails or something, and you're changing the collet, which if we go over here, we'll go over these. These then get to screw in here, and this follows a template, for example, for doing finger joints or dovetails. We'll be showing you that in a little bit. So depending on what you're doing, you would put one of these in there. And then we also change the bases out. So depending on what you're doing, you want to have a bit that's really close to your base. You don't want to have a small bit in there with a wide opening. Could get stuck, something could happen. So I want to go over and show you some bits, and then what we're going to do is put a bit in the router. So come on over here. We're going to run real fast. Don't lose me because I'm pretty speedy. And over here is our router bits. You're going to notice we have quite a variety of them. Here is your 3/8 versus down here. Here is your 1/2 inch shank. So you can see there's a difference. So you can't put this bit in a 1/2 inch collet one. So you have a lot of different types of bits to choose from. And we're going to choose a very simple one. We're going to go with this one right here, and it is called an OG. Over here we have some of the more fancy ones for doing, and you see on the video, doing raised panels, doing stiles and rails for your doors, which will come a little later on. So let's go set up a router bit. All right, now depending on which router you're having, so here you can, this is pretty good. The Porter cable router goes with the Porter cable router, and this one right here is the Bosch router. Now notice I only need one over here, but I need 2 wrenches here. The nice thing on this one here is I can lock this in place right here. So I would spin this around, and then this would lock in, and we're going to do it in a minute, and I only need 1 wrench. Where over here I have to put a wrench on this one and this one right here. It's a little more work to do. Now when you're putting the router bit in, if we can get in on here, we don't want to put the bit all the way in. You want to have that up just a little bit, about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch. You have it's a long shaft right here, and a lot of the new ones you won't be able to see it, but it will have a little mark on it, and I believe our mark is kind of gouged up. We'll try to see if I can find another one, but that's about where you want to take it to. So you have a good 1 inch of the shaft that's in there, so right about there. And then what we're going to do is lock this in. So now I'm locked in, and now what I can do is take my wrench and tighten this down. And you don't have to go crazy with it. Having the 2 wrenches is kind of hard. Sometimes you slip and smack your knuckles together. And also make sure that this now is disengaged, because if you did start this with disengaged, you would have a problem. So now what I want to do is I want to set the depth of my router bit. Now the nice thing about a plunge router is what we can do is we can actually take this, go down, go into the wood, all right, and then come up. We can also set this for different depths. So right over here, I could set that up so I only want to go in so far, and that would stop right there. Matter of fact, it's not going to go anywhere. So we're going to come up here, but say if we went down here, so I have this set, so when I come down, that's as deep as I can go. So we can set these stops up here, which is pretty nice. The plunge router is very versatile. So what we're going to do, we're just setting up, we're not going to plunge on this. What we are going to do is just set up to a set depth. So what I want to do is I'm going to come down here, and what I'm trying to do is get a little profile on this. So I'm just having a little bit sticking out down above this, and you'll see what I'm trying to do. I'll take a piece of wood, and so that's as deep as I want to go. Now I have it set where I'm pretty close. If I had a mark on here, what I can do now is I can adjust this right here so I can go a little deeper or not so deep. So I'm going to go in about 1/8 of an inch. So now I'm set. You always are doing this with it unplugged. Never plug in any power tool and then make adjustments on it. Make sure it's unplugged. I'm going to plug this in, but what I do want to do is I want to make sure that it is off. So if I do plug it in, it's not going to start to run. So I'm going to come over here, plug this in. Now, when I go put my wood on the table and I start to route it, it could throw it on me. So what I need to have is something that's going to hold the wood for me. Our router mats are kept in here. So grab one of them. And if we take a look at this, you can see these nice marks on here. That is from the ball bearing running against that. So what they did is they had thinner wood. So when I have my piece of wood that I am going to route, all right, I want to make sure, and I am going to check it, that the ball bearing is not hitting the mat. If it is, what I want to try to do then is I'm going to raise it up, and I'm going to go onto a sanding board, and then what I can do is it's not going to move, and I can now route where there is a space between the wood and the table or the router mat. So I want to make sure, depending on what I'm doing, if I had a smaller one, I could go right on the router mat. So when we go with the router, am I going clockwise or counterclockwise? I'm going to make you think for a second. I can see the steam coming out of your ears. Yes, counterclockwise. We want to go counterclockwise because the bit's going the other way. If you go the other way, it's going to take off on you. You're going to go, whoa. And what you want to do is when you're routing, I like to get a wide stance. I come down and I will use my elbow sometimes on the wood. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to bring it on the wood and I'm going to go counterclockwise, stop, turn it until I go all the way around. Remember, when always using any power equipment, eye safety and your earplugs, all right? You don't want to lose an eye or lose your hearing. Safety first. So here we go. I'm going to start with my router. I get that up there. I'm going to start it up. Wait for it to get up to speed. I put the router away from me. Now, if we look on this, people say, oh boy, I messed up right here. You didn't mess up. What you did is didn't go far enough in for the ball bearing to guide you on your edge. So this is good. Right here, it's not. This is good right here. So this is very easy. I can turn the router off and inspect my wood. It's not good. Then I can come back and go over it again. So I'm going to go down here, go on, wait till it'll come up to speed. I'm getting the ball bearing to run on the edge of the wood. Now the big thing you don't want to do is teeter-totter on it. So that's why I have a wide stance. My legs are spread apart, I'm balanced, so I can control the router. You don't want the router controlling you. So now I'm going to turn the wood. You notice I come off of the wood and then let it stop. Do not turn the router off when the router bit is in contact with the wood. Never start the router when it is in contact with the wood. So here we go over here. Again, I get my stance, I'm balanced, I turn it on, slowly bring it in. And there we go. Now what we have is a nice, this is an OG router bit, just nice decorative edge. Very nice to put on tabletops, end tables. It's one of the most common router bits. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go do a straight edge board. Now, if we were doing a straight edge board, you can do it on the shaper really easy. I can do it very good on here. Now this one is the same size. I'm going to use this board here. And short-term memory. Are we going clockwise or counterclockwise? Thank you. Counterclockwise. And the big thing that we want to remember is end grain. These are straws. So although I'm going counterclockwise, I go into the straws, which is great. If I come out of the straws, what's going to happen is the straws are going to break out. So yes, we're going to have to go against the rule, and we will go into the wood going clockwise, only for a little bit. So here we go. We're going to watch this one right here. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to come in a little bit, and then I'm going to go my clockwise direction. So balanced, wide stance, coming in. Come right around. Now I'm going to come back. So here I had to come into the wood. And now what I want to do is I'm going to rotate my wood. So when I rotate it, now I can come down and go into the wood. You got to watch out. Your end grain, again, is the ends of the straws and will burn a lot. So if you're burning a lot, it's usually the end grain. So what you can do is take off just a little bit and then take off another pass. That will also help from burning. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up on this here so I can come in around my corner. Grab my router. Nice and slow around the corners. Put it down, and you notice I like to put the bit away from me. So now we have a nice edge, no burns. You can do knots, just be careful, go slow. If they're loose, don't do them. Pull them out, but you can go over those. Those will be nice and hard. If I was going with clockwise, it's going to run on me really, really fast. I've taken out the OG bit, and what we've put in here, this is a rabbiting bit. So what I have is I've set it to our depth, and I am now going to plug it in. Remember, always make adjustments when you are unplugged. Again, I want to have a nice wide stance on this. And I'm going in what direction? You got it, counterclockwise. Okay, I'm going to go off. And then I like to rotate the board because I like to be up here. Again, I have a wide stance. Turn it on, wait till it go up to speed. Okay, going to take a look on this. Now, what I do is because I can't hit a corner with a round ball bearing, it's going to round that. So what I will do is I will just probably chisel that out, or whatever piece I put in there, then what I'll do is round those. But it's very easy just to take those out. So that's the backing of my picture frame. And now if I wanted to, I could go and put an OG or something around this edge. But I'm going to take this, I'm going to do some creative stuff on it, and then come back to that. So there's another way to use the hand router. And this one was a rabbiting bit. All right, now what we're going to do is setting up a bit here to show you how you use the plunge router on plunging. So I have my bit set in. I'm going to bring it down to the depth that I want. I don't know if you can see that, but what I'm now going to do is lock down my stop. So right here, so now you'll see it. So it will go down in, and that's as far as it goes. So I'll be able to go in, and then I'll be able to make my move on that. Okay, the bit that we have here, what we have is it's got a wider head up here, and then you have the shaft here. This is all cutting. So what you're doing is making a big hole, and then when we plunge down, then we move, and then this is cutting. So what will happen is I'll be able to put a screw in there, and then this part will slide down. So this is just a specialty bit. So if we come up here, we can see we can put the screw in, and then it slides, and then it will hold that. All right, I've set everything up with it unplugged. So now what I'm going to do is go over and plug it in. So all I'm doing on this one right here is I'm going to line up. I have it on my router mat. I'm going to go on. I'm going to bring it down, plunge in. Turn it off. So now, what I have just done, and it'll be hard to see, is I made a keyway. I can put a screw in here, and it will slide up here and hold. So I can put a screw on the wall, and then put this board in and slide it down, and it would hold. So if I was doing on our piece before, let's just say this is a coat hanger or something, I could then instantly hang it on the wall. So that just happens to be the bit I was using for a plunge. I could plunge and go down and do rabbet joints. I can do dado joints. So I'm only going to take so much wood, slowly go down, and then have it all the way to my depth that I want. So the plunge router is very, very nice versus the stationary router. So there is your router. It's a great tool. You can go set up on the router shaper, but you need to use the miter gauge or the fence. So what I want to do here is I want to pull out and show you a great tool. And this is for doing dovetails. We also have another one. This is the big monster. I might need a forklift. This one here also does finger joints and a lot of other things. You can see this one is a lot more complex than the smaller one. But these ones here are the ones that you're going to need to go put these guides in. Because what these guides do is they're going to come right down in here and they follow that. Now, I don't know if you can see, this one has no play to it. So this one is just right in, right out. That's a bigger one. So now you can see on a smaller one, this one right here, I would go down and come over. So I'm going on this edge, then up on that edge, around. And it will give me a different width of the dovetail joint. Not going to go into that right now. That's a whole nother can of worms, and it's also for the more advanced students. So now we've gone over the router. We know there's different types of routers. There's the plunge router. There's just a stationary router. And they're great. I love it because you can route curved areas. Also, you can do straight areas. Look forward to seeing you in class.